this video I'm going to show you the second part of our bird painting, which is applying the colour. The success criteria for my painting is going to be that I'm going to mix up the colours to match those that I see on the bird. I'm not just going to take them straight off of the palette. I'm also going to apply colours starting from the lightest, working my way up to the darkest, and I'm going to create the texture of the bird's feathers with my paintbrush. You should already have a line drawing like this with no shading ready to start applying your paint. I'm going to use two paint brushes for this, a medium one for big areas and a small one for detailed areas. These are the paints we'll be using. They're called temper block paints, and what's good about them is that they are quite versatile. So if you want a thinner, more transparent paint, you would add more water, and if you want a thicker, more opaque paint, then you would just add a little bit less water to them. I'm mostly going to be using the palette that has got the browns and the white and the dark blue on it, and maybe just a little touch of the bright blue and yellow from the other palette. So we're going to start with whatever our lightest colour is first, and the reason that we're doing that is because if we start with a very dark colour, then it's difficult to paint over that colour and to add in other colours to your painting. So if you start with the light colours first, you can gradually work your way up to the darker colours. So for my bird, the lightest colour is this kind of off-white shade underneath the bird's beak, and then I'm also going to start adding a little bit of a very light grey to that. So the best way to make grey is by adding a bit of dark blue and dark brown into your white. I'm now adding a wee touch of brown into that grey to make this kind of light beigey colour. So I'm keeping my paint quite light and transparent by adding a bit more water into it, because I want to start off with a nice light base colour. And you can see that my brush strokes are showing what the texture of the bird's feathers would be like. Now I'm starting to move into more of a medium colour, adding in a bit more brown, and I'm always looking at the direction that the bird's feathers are going in. So you can see that they're kind of fanning out from the bird's eye. I'm now just going to zoom you in a little bit so you can see in more detail what I'm doing on the bird's head. So I'm doing very light little delicate strokes here to show that feathery texture. I'm now moving into my darkest colour for that speckly part on the top of the bird's head. So I'm using a mixture of dark blue and dark brown. You want to avoid using black because black is very overpowering and it's quite flat looking. So you'll get a better shade if you use dark blue and dark brown. I'm just using the tip of the brush to do this, very, very lightly, and that's helping me get that detail and helping me get that kind of feathery texture. For the bird's eye, I'm leaving a couple of little flecks of white just to make it look as if the light is bouncing off the bird's eye. And now as I move on to the beak, you can see it's also got some shiny parts to it. So for that, I'm just cleaning off my brush and blending out some of the paint I had on there to make it look a little bit lighter and more transparent. Now I'm moving on to the body of the bird, and I'm continuing with that light base colour I had, that kind of beigey colour, which was my grey mixed with a wee bit of brown. As you can see, I'm continuing to use my brush strokes to create that feathery texture for my bird. I'm gradually adding a bit more dark brown to my paint to create some tone and show where the darker feathers are. So if I had started with my dark brown colour and then tried to add my light beigey feathers on top of that, that wouldn't have really worked because the paint wouldn't have shown up against the dark brown colour. So that's why we always work from lightest colour to darkest. I'm now using a wee touch of a brighter blue just to add in that little bit of pattern that is on the bird's left wing. I'm using that really dark colour again now that I used on the bird's head and the beak. So mixing together dark blue and dark brown. Now to finish off the feathers, I'm adding some more of that light grey that I used at the very beginning underneath the bird's beak. So adding in dark blue and dark brown to my white. Now moving on to the bird's feet, and I'm using that mustard paint for my base colour, and then I'm going to use a bit of dark brown to add in some tone to the bird's feet. Lastly, I'm going to paint the wee perch that the bird is sitting on, and I'm using the same technique of working from light to dark. So I'm starting off with a light greyish brown colour all over the branch. And again, I want to see some brush strokes here to show the sort of rough texture of the wood. And then I'm using a really dark brown to add the shadow down the right hand side. And giving it a wee blend with my paintbrush. And there we have it. There is my finished bird painting. Now we're going to check back on our success criteria from the beginning of the video. We've managed to mix colours to match those we can see on our bird. I've applied my colour working from the lightest to the darkest. And I've managed to create texture for the bird's feathers with my paintbrush.